For almost 30 years, Voller Law Firm has been winning serious injury and death cases for clients. They have collected millions of dollars on behalf of their clients and belong to the prestigious $1 Million Advocates Forum. When insurance or a wrongdoer won't pay for what they took from you, go with an award-winning firm with a track record of results. At Voller Law Firm, results matter. Make sure you go with lawyers that have the experience, ability, and financial power to hold those that hurt you accountable. Put your trust in Voller Law Firm. Give them a call at 662-323-0083.
You're listening to Thunder and Lightning on SuperTalk Mississippi, covering Mississippi State sports like nobody else. With Sports Talk Mississippi's Brian Hadad and Robbie Faulk of On3 Sports. Now get ready for Thunder and Lightning.
This is Thunder and Lightning here on Super Talk Mississippi. Brian Hadad and Robbie Faulk here with you on a Thursday morning. Thanks for joining us here at supertalk.fm or wherever it is that you get podcasts from. We appreciate you guys out there, our great listeners, especially our servicemen and women out there taking care of us. I want to thank our sponsors over at Strange Brew Coffee House and Churn and Spoon Ice Cream. Start your day the right way with a trip to the drive-thru over at Strange Brew Coffee House here in Starkville or at Brupolo over in Tupelo. It'd be a little weird, Robbie, if Brupolo was in Warrenton.
That'd be really weird.
Be not far from my house back when I was a kid, but you know.
Warrentown? Warrenton?
Warrenton was in Warren County. So
there you go. Can we not be a little more creative?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you want. So I mean, if there was Winstonton, you know.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that.
According to my list of counties of unincorporated communities, there is no Winstonton. But
no, I don't believe that to be true.
Well, there you go.
But there is a Warrenton, and they made the show today, so congratulations.
I'm sure I've got friends from there. Wherever you are in our great state, you got to enjoy Strange Brew Coffee each and every morning. It's only a click away. It's at strangebrewcoffeehouse.com. The Mississippi Beef Council wants to remind you that beef, it is what's for dinner. If you're cooking out this weekend, nothing beats the sizzle of beef on the grill. But if you don't feel like cooking out, I think it's going to be a little rainy this weekend. So if you're thinking, I don't want to fire up the grill, but I still want to enjoy some beef, I mean, from wherever you live in this state, from South Haven to Biloxi, from Vicksburg to Meridian, there are great steakhouses to be found. Go frequent one of them. Go enjoy a great steak this weekend. Wherever you go, you're going to get a good one. Beef, it's what's for dinner, thanks to our friends at the Mississippi Beef Council. College Corner, collegecornerstore.com. That's the place to find the maroon and white merchandise that you are looking for. The holidays are coming up upon us, guys. 40, 60, 50, 30 plus, something like that. It's not long. It's not long till we get to Christmas. And if you aren't ready, well, you're going to look like a fool on Christmas morning. Don't be that guy. Don't be that lady. Get your stuff now. Get your holiday shopping taken care of at College Corner. 2 locations in the Jackson area, Ridgeland by Fleet Feet, Flow by the Half Shell, or you shop online at collegecornerstore.com. Restaurant Tyler, Starkville's flagship restaurant. For lunch, dinner, or Sunday brunch, the best meal in town is always going to be at Restaurant Tyler. If you are looking for a great dinner, somebody I saw in a message board, they were looking, hey, where should I take, it's like a special occasion kind of thing. Say no more. Enjoy a meal at Restaurant Tyler. That's the place you want to go for great steaks, great pasta, fantastic appetizers, and to finish off the meal, the best dessert in Starkville, the stuffed pancake. It's all right there for you. If you're going to have if you got a special occasion coming up, you absolutely have to book a table at Restaurant Tyler. Priority One Bank, 16 locations here to serve you throughout Central Mississippi. Let PriorityOneBank.com be your guide and show you not only how they're going to help you invest and manage your money, but how they're going to help you prepare for the future. Now more than ever, when you have questions about your money, you need answers. You need to talk to a bank that knows you the same way it knows your money, a bank that can take care of you, has a relationship with you, and you're not just a number to them. That's what you get at Priority One Bank. Let Priority One Bank make you their priority. We got a good show lined up for you today. A couple of interviews. We're going to talk later to Andrew Abbott. You might remember him. He used to cover Southern Mississippi, now covers the Florida Gators for the Gainesville Sun. Plus, I surprised Robbie. I was working on this interview, and I didn't want to say anything until I had everything booked, but it's done now. Vic Ballard is going to join us a little later in the show. Former Mississippi State running back who was a key part of that crazy 10-7 win in 2010, which, as I've said many times, Robbie, that is the last time Mississippi State played in Gainesville, 15 seasons ago. So I wanted to get Vic's thoughts and let you know what he's doing in his life. I'll go ahead and let you know you're going to be impressed with what he's doing in his life. I was. And we'll talk some basketball later in the show. But let's start here with this, Robbie, and this is kind of the crux of my interview with Andrew that we'll play in just a minute. Mississippi State's offensive line has not been good this year. We'll just make it as easy as we can. If you look at the SEC stats, 2 of the top 3 teams are the teams that have played Mississippi State. Tennessee is leading the league in sacks. Texas A&M is 3rd. I just don't think it's any surprise. The other side of that equation is Florida, which is a defensive line we've been seeing a lot of hype for. They're not great. They have 1 more sack on the season than does Mississippi State. I believe they're tied for 11th in sacks. 6 of those sacks came against Texas. So in the other games they played, they only have 3 sacks. This is not a defensive line that has done a great job of rushing the quarterback. So we're in one of those famous something's got to give kind of situations here, Robbie. In your opinion, what's it going to be?
Well, I think a lot of it hinges on whether or not Mississippi State is relatively healthy up front. And, I'll give the advantage in a pass rush situation to most defenses in the SEC against Mississippi State just because they have not held up well. And Blake Shapen has had that little bit of a hitch, I guess, in getting the ball out quicker. He's holding on to it a little too long. Until State proves that they can protect and max protect and give him more than 3 seconds, I'm going to give the defense the benefit of the doubt. But this isn't the defenses that you've been playing the last 2 weeks as far as pass rush, generating pass rush, consistently getting to the quarterback the way they have. Tennessee has 26 sacks to Florida and Mississippi State's 9. If you combine Mississippi State and Florida together, they still aren't close to Tennessee or Texas A&M.
Yeah,
Texas A&M has 21. Mm-hmm. So these are 2 of the best in the country at getting to the quarterback. Oklahoma's up there as well with 22, but they had 10 in a game this year. So this defense that Mississippi State's facing is still a talented defense. It's still a defense that can create issues for the Bulldogs, but they're towards the bottom of the league in a lot of the categories. They're at least middle of the pack. And you look at Mississippi State, they're about the same as what Mississippi State is defensively. So it's not like Mississippi State is playing the last 2 defenses that they've gone up against. This should be a game where the Bulldogs can generate some things on the offense.
Yeah.
And I've there's not a defense in this league that I don't think Mississippi State can score on.
Right.
I think Mississippi State has an offense that's capable. They put up 34 points on Tennessee, which I consider a good defense. Mm-hmm. They should have scored 20 plus against Texas A&M. There were opportunities for them to score more points. Mm-hmm. They just didn't do it. They should have scored 3 touchdowns against Texas A&M, which is one of the better defenses in the conference. So I think that this offense has the ability to do what it wants to do offensively if they're having the execution that they need to have, especially up front. And that's why Albert Reese is so big this week. Mississippi State needs to play a good ball game. You're going on the road in a very tough environment. How is Florida going to come out in this game? I don't know. So it's important to make sure you're not giving up those negative plays. And they talked about that on Monday. Levy harped on it. Blake Shapen harped on it. 1st and 2nd downs are where they're struggling right now. It's not really 3rd down. If you look at Mississippi State 3rd down this year, they've actually been pretty good. They were not good last week. I think they were 1 for 13 or something crazy, 1 for 10. I forget what it was. But the Bulldogs have actually been, even with where they were last week, they're still middle of the pack in the SEC. They're converting 42% of their 3rd downs. So you have a decent game last week, and you're probably towards the top half of the league in 3rd down conversions. It's 1st and 2nd down where they're struggling. They're having issues, especially last couple of games, in getting positive yards on 1st and 2nd. They're putting themselves behind the chains, and they can't do that in this game. This is a Florida team that's already fractured. I know they had a good game against Texas, but the mean for this team has been not very good.
Yeah.
So the way that you create what you did against Texas is negative plays and getting to the quarterback and forcing turnovers. Mississippi State's got to take care of the football, and they got to take care of Blake Shapen. If they do that, I think they win this ball game. If you give them, momentum, if you give them life, if you give that stadium life, you're going to be in trouble, just like you will in any road game in the SEC. So that to me is the biggest thing for the Bulldogs this week is you got to protect him and you got to protect the football.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a ton of hype about this Florida defense, and it's unwarranted. Not that they, and I think it's not that they aren't talented, right? You know as well as I do that Florida, all of these guys who aren't playing well right now are probably all 4- and 5-star guys. Florida certainly recruited well, but it's just that's kind of an overarching symptom of this Florida team. We know they're talented. We know that they have great players, but they aren't playing well, and that's why, as we're about to discuss, things are maybe in motion down there in Gainesville. For me, it's all about Albert Reese. I talked to some folks yesterday. He is expected to at least travel to Gainesville. So if that's a great sign. He did not travel to College Station. Today, which we're recording, it's around noon on Wednesday. Lebby told us on Monday that Wednesday was going to be kind of the tell-all day for Albert and for Isaac Smith. So, the injury report will come out later this evening, and we'll have an idea. My guess, and it's just a guess, is that they're probably. I think Isaac will be probable, and that you might see Reese is questionable, and then they'll determine on Thursday if they need to upgrade him to probable or downgrade him to doubtful, and kind of go from there. If Reese doesn't play, that's a big blow. And it's crazy, Robbie. I don't remember ever a year where a right tackle had so much sway over what I thought an offense was going to look like. But Reese is playing at a high level, but I don't know if it's so much that Reese has been really good or the guys behind him just haven't been able to get the job done.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. And then you have the leadership. I mean, that's a guy that's been here for 5 years. He is the leader of the offensive line group, and he's really kept things rolling on that side of the line. But also, like you said, the guys behind him, like it's a tremendous drop-off. When you have Javen James and Jimothy Lewis or Luke Work or whatever, it's just not the same. They've been able to get by with Jalen James and Albert Reese. They've been able to survive there, and they've been okay. But when you take Reese off the field, it has been a tremendous drop-off. If you look at what they did in the fourth quarter against Tennessee, the offense just was not the same. You look at what they did for the entire ball game against Texas A&M, they never really got things going in the pass game. I thought the running game, the two running backs, I thought did a pretty good job. You take away the sacks, and that was a good game running the football. But running the football is kind of coming along for them. It's protecting Blake Shapen that's been kind of the issue. Mm-hmm. And part of it is probably they've got to help the offensive line out a little bit too. There's got to be guys like tight ends and running backs that are going to have to step up. Blake Shapen's going to have to get the ball out quicker. They're going to have to get maybe some quicker routes, some intermediate routes to take a little bit of pressure off, to maybe draw a little bit of the defense off a little bit. That's the stuff that they're going to have to do. They're going to have to get creative. I know that Jeff Lebby said there's no scheme or whatever that they can do to fix that, and that's true for the offensive line, but there are some things that they can do around the offense that gets you out of some of those issues. And we'll see if they do that on Saturday, but it's a big question mark going into this game and going to the rest of the season. They got to keep Albert healthy. I do think he's that big of a part of this offense. And if he's back, I think that the odds go up for Mississippi State winning this game.
Agreed. All right, let's go to my interview now. Yesterday, I talked to Andrew Abity, covers the Gators for the Gainesville Sun. Wanted to get his thoughts on this game. As you know, all of our interviews here on Thunder and Lightning are brought to you by Allura Modern Wellness. Earlier today, if you follow Robbie or I on Twitter, we retweeted a tweet about Allura Modern Wellness and their high school athletes package. So for $75, unlimited core services, $75 a month. If you're a high school athlete and you're thinking, man, I really needed to get my recovery up, I'm working really hard out there, here's a great opportunity for you to get on board at Laura Modern Wellness. Give them a call at 662-268-9255, or you can visit their website, aloramodernwellness.com. And hey, if you're not an athlete, and you're just trying to get yourself feeling better, if you're out running or in the gym, you need to recover, Laura Modern Wellness is a place where you can get yourself feeling better. Let's go now to the interview I did earlier this week with Andrew Abity of the Gainesville Sun. Always great to welcome old friends back to the podcast, especially when they take new jobs. Andrew Abity joins us. He's now covering the Florida Gators for the Gainesville Sun. Has been down there since the start of this football season. And Andrew, if I asked you to do this, let's boil Florida's troubles down to one thing. If we could just correct one thing, this team would be better. What would it be for the Gators?
I'm usually reluctant to criticize overall coaching decisions, but I really feel like if Billy Napier gave up the play calling, they'd be in a lot better spot.
Wow. So just that simple of a decision, you feel like it's holding them back?
Honestly, yeah, because the talent is clearly there. DJ Lagley has clearly been. We all had our suspicions about him being hurt in the preseason and him playing through it, but that became obvious against Texas, and they're now kind of saying he's dealing with stuff, although he's not on the SEC injury reports.
It's an availability report. Remember that.
Right. And, you'd like for DJ to be able to run around and, run for his life a little bit more. But I think it really boils down to, Napier choosing to die on his hill, so to speak. I just feel like if you just had a different perspective or different play calling, there's some plays where it's like, okay, why are you calling this on third down? And, there's things that have clearly have come from the sidelines, not on the field. And that's not to say there's not positions that haven't worked out. I mean, the offensive line was supposed to be one of the best in the SEC. They clearly have not been that with the amount of penalties they've had. And, another layer to it, defense starting to finally get banged up. We're starting to see creaks in their armor. Of course, if your defense isn't on the field the whole game and you're losing the time of possessions, maybe that looks a little bit better. But I think that's kind of the big problem. I mean, that's something like the Florida fans have him and hawed about, as well as media. And, he's really doubled and tripled down on his decision to stick with play calling.
The thing that surprised me the most about Florida has been their inability to run the football. And when you think about Florida and some of the games they've played this year, even against like South Florida, they weren't able to really run the football all that well in that game. And I don't know, like you said, the offensive line coming into the season, we all thought that was going to be a strength. We thought they had some talent in the backfield. Lagway is a plus runner. Is it just a play calling thing? Why is this team not better at running the football?
No, I think some of it is play calling. Jaden Baugh is a great running back. I think if he's in a different system anywhere else, he's top 2 or 3 in the conference of rushing yards. I mean, he's incredible when he gets loose. I think, it's weird. I feel like I'm kind of covering the same story that I had at Southern Miss a year ago. They kind of view the run game or the short passes as an extension of the run game in some ways, and it doesn't work. I mean, the vast majority of DJ Lagway's passes are behind the line of scrimmage. And that's part of it. Another layer to it, though, is, one of their better running backs, or their number 2, Jacoby Jackson, who's now hurt, hasn't been quite the guy he was last year. This is a guy who had 500 yards and 7 touchdowns. And, maybe that's because he got hurt. Who knows? So they're not quite getting the run support, or at least Jaden Baugh is not getting the support. Then they have another guy, Duke Clark, comes in against Texas, looked pretty good, gets hurt. So there's been inconsistencies with that. DJ's not running the ball at all. Not that he ran it much last year, but this guy was supposed to be like one of the top dual threat quarterbacks coming into Florida, and he really doesn't run. And part of that is he's got an ankle injury. But yeah, I mean, the problem with it is that there's no like smoke when they're doing some of these plays. Some of these play calls are very predictable. And it's, I'm tasked with rewatching the games, and, it's kind of obvious to see like teams have Florida's offense pretty figured out, and I think part of that goes back to Billy. I'll give you a prime example. One of the big killers in the A&M game, game they're in. They've been in every game. It's 3rd and 6. They're within field goal position, or 3rd and 8. I'm sorry, and they opt to run the ball for 6. And it's like, all right, you're settling for the field goal, not trying to get a touchdown. And it's just that's the kind of play calling we see a lot from Napier. And I think, like I said, I don't think it's on the players entirely.
So when you think about what Florida does do well, and then you look at Mississippi State, where can the Gators exploit the Bulldogs this weekend?
Well, the big thing is their receivers are incredibly talented. Even their back end guys are incredibly talented. I mean, their best 2 players are freshmen. Mm-hmm. Vernell Brown III might be one of the best true freshmen I've ever seen. And Dallas Wilson's right there with them. I mean, if these guys stick around at Florida for 3 years, they could go down as 2 of the best to ever do it. I mean, they're breaking record after record for the program at least, and they're both incredible. But besides them, they have help. I mean, there's no shortage of experienced receivers that are good and can turn the corner in any given moment. Like I said, though, the frustrating part is the play calls don't sync up to their strengths all the time. But yeah, I think if they let their receivers cut loose, I mean, you could easily see what Florida did to Texas. I mean, that was a big difference. And the other half of it is Florida's defense is still really good. They keep them in every game. A&M, sure, they scored 34, but they scored quick in that first quarter, and then Florida pretty much kept them in check for the rest of the game. That was their worst defensive game of the season, and they still played pretty well against a pretty good Aggie team. And then at the end, the Aggies run an 8-minute drive in the fourth quarter, and on purpose because they know Florida's offense can't do anything. So, yeah, I think defense will keep them in it. I know Mississippi State's a lot more improved, and they have weapons. My question is, do they have enough to where they don't get predictable with who they're going to go to with the ball? But Mississippi State can win this game. Florida can win this game. But yeah, I think the receivers, how well Mississippi State can stop Florida's receivers, is going to be a big difference.
So Mississippi State is a team that's had trouble protecting the quarterback all season long. It's not really a coincidence that 2 of the top 3 teams in sacks in the SEC are teams that have played Mississippi State. Florida, on the other hand, is not a team that has done a great job of getting after the quarterback. They only have 9 sacks as a team. So what gives in this game? Is Florida going to be able to pressure Blake Shapen, or is State going to be able to protect him?
Well, they got 6 against Arch Manning.
Yeah.
And, but I think a root of that is, Ron Roberts is a bend, don't break. At least that's how it's been this year, and that's worked out really well. I do think, however, that, for at least in the case of Arch Manning, they had a struggling offensive line. They completely took advantage of it, and I kind of could see that again happening in this matchup. The thing is their defense is, like I said, injury bug is starting to turn its ugly head at them. So that's the main thing I wonder about. And then the other thing I've thought about with this game is, they're down 3 of their key pass rushers. 2 of them one of them was supposed to be go in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft, and they're still getting the job done. So I just wonder how long that can last, or if they get better. It's hard to say, but they had their moments against A&M too.
What's the atmosphere going to be like for this game? I have to assume Florida fans they're not the happiest group in the world. You mentioned with Napier and how the predictable play calling, nothing gets a fan base riled up quite like what you said. Running the football on 3rd and 8 and settling for field goals gets people mad. Is this going to be a crowd that if State comes out early and can get a lead, that could empty the stadium, turn on the team, anything like that?
To Florida's credit, I've never seen them empty the stadium when they had every right to. Of course, I've been here sparingly so far, but the fan base's loyalty is honestly, it's refreshing to see. And no knock to any of the Mississippi schools, but if things are going one way or the other at any of those 3 schools, everybody's gone by halftime. It's not really the case here. And also, it'll be homecoming week. I was kind of questioning, like, heading into the Texas game. I'm like, okay, is attendance going to drop off? And in no way it did. And I kind of suspect the swamp is the swamp. It definitely kind of lives up to that hype. I mean, it's a tough place to play. And I think just because it's homecoming, you're going to kind of see the crowd be what it normally is. But I wonder, though, if they lose this game and what happens after. So bad luck for Mississippi State in that case, because this could benefit the teams to come should Mississippi State pull this win out.
We're going to talk about that in just a second because I've been sort of harping on that for the past couple of weeks. On the podcast, whenever we do a preview like this, we always talk about an X factor, a player, not necessarily going to be the offensive or defensive player of the game, just somebody who could come out of nowhere, make a big play, make a couple of plays that change this game. Who would that be for Florida in your mind?
Oh, it'll be the two guys I mentioned previously, Vernell Brown or Dallas Wilson. I mean, if you want to go look up some stupid highlight reel plays, go look those guys up in just their very short career here. I mean, they're both incredible. Vernell Brown, though, I think more so than Dallas, although he's just coming back from his coming out game was the Texas game, and he had 2 touchdowns and 100 yards, and he had a crazy 55-yard touchdown catch and run that if you love football highlights, that's one you will look at and glare at. And Vernell Brown had a crazy one-handed Odell Beckham type catch to start the year, and he's been productive. I mean, he leads the team in catches. So if you're going to see a crazy play from Florida, it's going to be coming from one of those two guys.
All right. One thing I love to do, if you listen to Sports Talk Mississippi, people know this. I love to fire guys on the bye week, and that's what Florida has next week. Is there a scenario that if State wins this game, this is the last game Billy Napier coaches at Florida?
It's possible. I think the word on the street was that 5 losses is the magic number to pull the trigger. It'll be interesting, though. It's like, okay, say they win this game and they win ugly. Does that do it? In many ways, I feel like I'm in the same exact situation that Southern Miss was in last year. It seems like the AD really doesn't want to fire the coach. Now, of course, Billy Napier has a top 10 win under his belt. That never happened at Southern Miss. But in many ways, it feels like a very similar situation, if that makes sense. Like you really get the feeling Scott Strickland does not want to pull the trigger. Now, part of that is there's a hefty buyout to pay, which I can understand that. I know people think, it's Florida. Sure, they've got money, but they don't have A&M and Penn State money.
Right.
So I think that's a factor. And, I don't fault ADs unless they think the season could completely turn around, which, I mean, if Florida loses to Mississippi State at home on homecoming, I mean, what season is there really to look forward to? So why pull the trigger and pay the hefty buyout if you know you're going to fire the guy at the end of the season, save yourself the money? That's how I view it. I know that's how Southern Miss was trying to view it for a while, and I know that's how some schools view it too. Because then you could pay, in theory, get your next coach who's supposed to be better and pay him more. Because it's weird. Like everybody's talking about a coaching search here that hasn't even started yet.
Yeah,
it's been how it's been for the last 3 weeks. That's been the strangest part of it all for me. Is there's just everybody talking about who's the next coach going to be, and it's like this dude could still turn it around. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents. But the second bye week would make sense. I think that's what we're all kind of figuring what's going to happen. Like I said, though, if they win this game, what happens then? And I would think he rides it out till the end of the season.
Yeah, we shall see. Big game Saturday for both of these squads as they're trying to get towards some postseason eligibility. Andrew Abity, always appreciate you, man. Glad to have you back on the podcast. Enjoy your time down in Florida, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
So I asked him about it there at the end. And since then, we've gotten some new information about the job safety of one Billy Napier, and was reported earlier today that Scott Strickland has been meeting with some boosters, and that regardless of outcome this weekend, this could be the end for Billy Napier. As you might expect here on Thunder and Lightning, Robbie and I disagree about what this means. Robbie looks at it as a term of, all right, they may just go ahead and lay down. I I don't know if you guys know this about me or not. I'm a little more pessimistic than Robbie is. I look at it as
What?
I know. They may rally around their coach in this situation and try to send him out a winner. So, as I think I saw one of the guys on your message board say, either somebody's getting croomed or somebody's getting arnetted. One of the two is happening this weekend. This was always going to happen, Robbie. We've been talking about Napier getting the can for it feels like basically since he took the job. It just has never gone right for him. I see where you're coming from. Certainly, I think mine is just my natural negative nature, triple N, if you will.
If they came out with a vote of confidence for Billy Napier, you would also say, oh, this means that they're going to rally now and beat Mississippi State by 5 touchdowns. It doesn't matter what they do with Billy Napier, you're still going to say Mississippi State's going to lose.
Correct.
So you give yourself a universe of
look,
like if something good happens,
right.
I'm here. Like
it's
you don't have to worry about any
instead
instead
of like reporting something. If I were just to say like what I'm hearing, that way I just leave myself a lot of outs. So
people do that all the time.
So, I guess let's talk about it though from your perspective, because if we're being honest, you're probably the correct one. I mean, this feels like something we'll know pretty early in the game, right? State just comes out, drives the ball down the field, and then Florida's 3 and out. That crowd is just going to go call it a day, and you're going to go from there. State has to come out fast in this game. They need to. That crowd wants to turn. They want to boo Billy Napier so bad. You got to give them a reason to do it.
That is absolutely the play here. Mississippi State has got to come out early, just like the Arizona State game and the Tennessee game when I said about those games. And it's really true about any game, but some more than others, because there's situations like this that are so testy. They're waiting to turn. They're waiting to have the bloodlust. They want things to go bad in that crowd. Mm-hmm. It sounds strange to say, but they do. The fans are at the point. Mississippi State fans have been there. They're just waiting for something to happen that's negative so they can turn. Mm-hmm. And Mississippi State's got to oblige them. Mississippi State has got to come out, first possession, touchdown, 3 and out. You do that, I think you're off and running, because I just think that there's so little room here for positivity and moving forward for Florida right now under Billy Napier, that you're just ready to he's just kind of teetering. You're ready to push him off the cliff here. I said this during the 19 season, I think, or no, the 20 season. What was the year that Ed Orgeron was?
21.
But 21. Mm-hmm. That season,
I remember this game. I know you talked.
Mississippi State had a chance there. Yeah. Everybody was talking about Ed Orgeron was on the chopping block. They're about to get rid of him. Jaden Daniels. No, I forget who was there. Anyways, State didn't take advantage of that. And they didn't take advantage of Jimbo Fisher. That's right, Max Johnson. They had kind of a weird offense. State didn't take advantage of that. They didn't take advantage of Jimbo Fisher. They've had opportunities where coaches have been right there on the edge, and all they had to do was give them the finger poke of doom, and they're gone. They have to do this with Billy Napier. Like, he's got to be terminated this weekend, and it needs to be Mississippi State's doing. If not, it's yet another game where Mississippi State gets beat and the coach still gets fired, like what happened to Gus Malzahn, what happened to Jimbo Fisher. It'd be nice if Mississippi State was back on the other end of it. And also, just getting over the hump and winning an SEC game. I feel like if you do that, I don't know if the floodgates open or anything like that, but this team's playing with so much more confidence, and you're not talking about 14 consecutive SEC losses. It's been 2 calendar years now almost that Mississippi State has not won an SEC game. Mm-hmm. And that's too long for anybody. This team is so close. I don't think this team compares at all to the last 2 that have lost the majority of those ball games, but they haven't been able to get through and win that game yet. This weekend is a perfect opportunity. You have a team they're hearing the noise this week. You know it's a distraction in their rooms. I'm sure they'll come out and they'll be inspired, with the prospects of Billy Napier coaching his final game, they'll want to play for their coach. But the minute you have something negative go against them, that's when they start pointing fingers again and they start getting frustrated. That's what needs to happen for Mississippi State. You do not need confidence building for this team and for them to be playing on a high. You have to come out and you have to take this game from them. And I think it's there for the taking.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that. All right, before we go to the break, let's do this other interview. Let's stay in football here. Earlier this week, I caught up with Mississippi State running back Vic Ballard. Was a huge part of State's last win in Gainesville, which was the last time State played in Gainesville in 2010. The crazy 10-7 game where Mississippi State, the run-to-pass ratio was 49-9. If you're an always run, never pass truther such as myself, buddy, this was the best game that was ever played. So let's go down to my interview with former Bulldog legend Vic Ballard, again brought to you by our friends over at Allura Modern Wellness. Been looking forward to this conversation ever since he agreed to do this with me. Vic Ballard joins us now here on the podcast, and we're going to go back in time. It's hard to believe this, Vic, but that's the last time Mississippi State played at Florida, was the game in 2010. And it's two teams supposedly in the same conference, but they haven't made this trip. When you remember back to that week, with Mullen having come from Florida and knowing a lot of those players, having a relationship with Urban Meyer, do you remember what the message was from him going into that game?
I really don't, honestly, because it's been a while now, but I do remember thinking that maybe we have a little edge because he, has some familiarity with the players, with the coaches, and I guess you could say the overall scheme. And I just remember it being a big week because, it was also, the media hyped it up because it was, Mullen's return to Florida. So, that goes without having to speak for.
And that was a game where, when you look back at that point in the season, I think there was a lot of, is Mississippi State for real? Is this team going to be one of the best teams in the SEC this year? You'd had some early season success, had lost to LSU and to Auburn, obviously, but it turned things around, beating Georgia. And so people were looking at this game and saying, wow, if State can go into the swamp, that would be a big statement for you guys. I think that, they always talk about blocking that kind of noise out. How much can you really do that in the locker room?
It's hard to block it out, man. But I think we kind of went into it confident because I don't remember exactly the way the schedule unfolded, but I remember we beat Georgia, and when we beat Florida, I think they were ranked at the time, and
They were.
yeah, they were like 25th, and that was a huge confidence boost for us. So whatever chatter was going on outside of our locker room, after that we kind of silenced it.
What kind of atmosphere was that in the swamp that night? I mean, that's a place that is well known for being a tough place to play. Did you feel that going into the game?
I definitely did, and I didn't notice it at the time, but we were only running the ball. I think we ran the ball.
I was gonna get to that, yeah.
But yeah, I think that was one point in time where we had ran the ball maybe 23 times straight, or it was something crazy like that. And I was thinking to myself, man, are we Georgia Tech? But, I think we only threw the ball 7 times that game, probably 6 because one of the
It was 9. I thought it was less than that too, but it was 9. Ralph was 4 of 9 in that game.
That is crazy. And I think one of those completed passes was a pitch to me because it was a forward lateral.
Yeah.
So
And there's a shovel pass in there too to Brandon Henderson. I went back and watched some of the highlights today. Basically, he threw it down the field twice in this entire game.
That is crazy. Who was moving the ball though? So
and you look at it, so the ratio was 49 runs to 9 passes. It's kind of interesting. Florida ran 30 more plays than you guys in this game, but they couldn't get anything going offensively. You had a couple of timely turnovers. Jonathan Banks had an interception. KJ Wright had a fumble recovery in that one. But you had 22 carries. Ralph was over 20 carries as well. I have to guess, going into the game plan was not, we're going to run it 50 times and only throw it 9. At what point in the game does Mullen say, okay, we're just going to pound them and not stop?
like I said, man, I didn't even realize it was unfolding like that. I just, looked up and I was like, man, we're not throwing the ball. And I remember we actually put in a package for me, I guess the Wildcat. That, other than that, we pretty much practiced our regular offense, leading up into the game. So we wasn't running a disproportionate amount of running plays throughout the week. We ran our, typical offense. So I guess at some point Mullen said, I think that we might have an advantage on the ground versus in the air.
What kind of offensive line did you play with? We all know Jarek Sherrod was a first rounder, but guys like Salisbury, Tobias Smith,
Yeah,
Brigoni, these are guys that, I mean, they could move the pile.
for sure. And at the time, they were all pretty seasoned. You can't forget about Gabe Jackson as well.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
not
so
seasoned though. He was a young guy in that group.
he was a freshman. So we had with the exception of Gabe, but Gabe held his own whenever he came in. But everybody was pretty seasoned, so it made guys like me made our jobs easy.
What's that moment like where the field goal that they attempt to tie the game at the end? What's that moment like where you realize it's no good?
Oh man, it was awesome. I have a picture etched in my brain, when they missed and everybody stormed the field, and it was this one guy. He was a safety named Zach Smith. He
Yeah.
jumped. He jumped on one of the coaches. I can't remember who it was, but like I said, it was one of those memorable moments where it's like, man, I'm gonna remember this forever.
When you think about, Mississippi State in that particular season, I feel like this game this year as well kind of has sort of some similarities. If State could go down there and get a win, it could turn their season in the right direction the way it did for you guys. When you think about playing on the road in the SEC, what's the single most important thing that teams have to have if they want to win on the road?
I think confidence because obviously you're not at home, and there's a little bit. It's a little different, at least when you're on offense because you can't hear
Yeah.
and you got to rely on the silent snap count. But just knowing that, we put in the work throughout the week. We're just as good as these guys, and just having that swagger about yourself to know that you can come in a hostile place like that and walk away with a W.
It's kind of interesting. There's two guys that are still with the team today that would have been out there. Obviously, Chad Bumpus is an assistant coach here at Mississippi
Right.
State, but Greg Knox is still on staff here at Mississippi State, who would have been your running backs coach.
Yeah.
Give me, I know you've got to have one. Give me a good Greg Knox story.
Oh, let me see. I'm trying to think of a nice one.
His son's a good running back right now too for Starkville High. Man, he can run the football.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's funny because I remember when they were like babies, like I don't know, maybe 3, 4 years old, and
Yeah,
now they're teenagers. It's crazy.
yeah.
I guess I'm getting old, but I don't I don't really have a particular story. I just remember a saying that he used to always say.
Mhm.
Uh, he would always say Jiminy Christmas, like whenever because he wouldn't cuss. He would
Yeah,
he would always say Jiminy Christmas. Like
that
what is
that's a bad word for Coach Knox, I think.
right? Exactly. Yeah, he's a great
So,
man.
and you played with obviously Ralph could run the football. You had Ladarius Perkins. Robert Elliott got some carries in this game. That was
Right.
a team that was kind of built around the running game. But even then, when we go back to it, I don't think it was built for 50 runs versus 9 passes. That's still to this day one of the most improbable offensive displays I've ever seen. But it worked, and you can't argue with the results.
Yeah, around that time, I think we were still trying to find our identity as an offense,
Mhm.
and because I can't remember what game of the year that was, but I feel like we have finally started getting some momentum, and we figured out as a unit we can move the ball pretty well on the ground.
So that game, I got the box score up here. That was game 7 of the season. You were 4-2 coming in, and
Okay, yeah,
and we're 5-2 coming out. So
yeah, okay,
crazy, just a game that and again, it stands out for me for 2 reasons. One, it was really the first after he had the Egg Bowl his first year, but this is like the first signature win for Dan Mullen. But
sure,
2, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's been 15 years since these two teams have played in that stadium, and
crazy,
that doesn't make any sense when you think about playing in a conference. State's played more games at USM in the last 15 years than they played at Florida.
right.
What just from Dan Mullen, from Mississippi State, whatever, what's the memory that always stands out to you when you think back to your time here in Starkville?
As you were talking, immediately I thought about, obviously the Egg Bowl weekend, how we would do crazy stuff like put the, Ole Miss jerseys on the floor and walk over them,
Yeah.
as we were in and out of facility, or put Ole Miss decals inside the urinal. Just like just little petty stuff like that, man,
Yeah.
to intensify the rivalry between us. But it was a nice time. I really enjoyed it.
So I see the picture behind you. Is that the dive into the end zone, that crazy touchdown you scored?
Oh yeah, no, that's in when I was in Indianapolis. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I always think about that play where like you basically contort your body midair to get into the end zone. That's one of the craziest touchdowns that I remember seeing. You were
Yeah,
talking to us though, talking to me before the thing. Your life has not taken the path that you thought it would when we were playing this game. You are now an aerospace engineer. Now,
yeah.
Mississippi State's a great engineering school, but that was not why you came to Mississippi State.
No, man, I came to Mississippi State to be a football player.
Yeah. And so, how did you get into aerospace engineering? That doesn't seem like something you just pick up. It doesn't feel like a hobby.
When I was in the NFL, got to a point where I figured out this wasn't going to be my long-term plan, and I had to figure out something else to do in my life. And surprisingly, when I first got to Mississippi State, I wanted to be or study engineering, but they were like, "Nah, bro, choose something else because you came here to play football."
Yeah.
Chose business, graduated with a business degree, but as I alluded to, whenever football ended for me, I thought about my 19-year-old self, going to Mississippi State, wanting to study engineering. I was like, man, I can do it now because I'm not playing football anymore, and I got somebody willing to give me a scholarship to go back to school. So I went back to school at UCF, and I studied mechanical engineering. And whenever you are about to graduate, you start applying to jobs, and I went to a job fair for Lockheed Martin, and just so happened to, find myself working at aeronautics, and they gave me a job, and I've been an engineer ever since, man.
So when you're going to get your master's at UCF, did you have people like if they call your name in the role, did people Vic Ballard? Are you Vic Ballard? Vic Ballard? Did you get that a lot?
Nah,
Ah,
funny thing though, there was this I don't remember what he was when I was in Indianapolis. I think he was like an intern or something like that.
mhm.
And coincidentally, he had moved to Orlando post his internship, and I was out there as well. And I was actually out on a date, and he walked up to me. He was like, "Are you Vic Ballard?" And I was like, "Yeah."
That's
And the girl,
perfect. He gassed you up on a date. That's good. That's
right,
good
right,
stuff.
right. So
Yeah.
the girl I was with, she didn't know anything really about my past, and she looked at me. She was like, "Who are you?" And I was like, "Oh, nobody. He's just a guy I used to know from my past job."
That sounds like, on a Coming to America where he's like, it's just some guy I met in the restroom, but
Right, yeah, yeah,
something
exactly.
like
Yeah.
that. So, Vic, I really appreciate you taking some time to talk about this game. It's a game that I think about kind of often when I think about the Mullen era and your performance in it. And, I guess we'll end with this. If you were on staff, you were going to go down to Gainesville with this team tomorrow and you had to give a little pregame message, what would you tell them?
Oh man, this is something I was terrible at for pregame speech. I don't know. It's just, just walk out there with a swagger, man. They coming off some tough losses, but close losses. So it's not like the team isn't talented. It's just similar to us, we got to find a way to put it all together. Uh, play as a team, play hard, play fast, and know that you can come away with a win.
Vic, I really appreciate your time tonight, man. One of my all-time favorite Bulldogs. Glad to have you here on the podcast, and we'll hook up again down the road. Appreciate it, Vic Ballard, everybody.
Appreciate you having me.
I want to thank Vic for his time. Really appreciate that. An aviation engineer now.
Yeah, he's smart.
Yeah, I mean that is something. It's funny to hear him talk about it. He's like didn't have any plans to do that, but then talked about he also came to state, wanted to major in engineering, and basically they were like, why don't we take it a little easier while you're on the football team?
Probably not easy to be an SEC athlete and an engineer at the same time. It's not
Probably
easy to be an engineer or an SEC athlete.
Yeah.
Doing both of them at the same time, not so much.
Yeah.
One of the most underrated running backs in Mississippi State history.
No doubt.
By the way.
Scored 20 touchdowns.
If he plays 3-4 years, we're
right
talking about him
Dixon
in the
and Norwood.
same.
Yeah.
We were talking about him in the same category as Anthony Dixon, J.J. Johnson, all the greats that have come through at Mississippi State. We're talking about him in that same category.
Agreed, 100%. All right, let's move into the last part of the show. That's brought to you by our friends over at Two Brothers Smoked Meats in the Cotton District and, of course, the Older Brother. Two fantastic places for you to grab lunch or dinner right there next door to each other in the Cotton District. We love a trip to Two Brothers and to the Older Brother. We love to eat there for lunch. We love to eat there for dinner. You will never, not one time in your life hear me say, if you say, hey, let's go to Two Brothers, you'll never hear me say no. It will literally never happen. I could have eaten there the day before and I'll be like, I can do it again because their menu, I talk about it all the time. I can go to Two Brothers today and get a couple of tacos, or get a sandwich, get some wings, get some nachos. They just have such a variety of stuff that I like. And that's kind of unusual. Most restaurants around town, I have my usual thing. This is what I like to get. Not at Two Brothers. I enjoy their entire catalog, and you will too. Two Brothers Smoked Meats and the older brother. Great products, great service. Every business promises it to you. They deliver it to you at Advantage Business Systems. That's what they've been doing for 50 years.
50, brother.
You need technology for your business? Give Advantage Business Systems a call. If you need a new copier, a new printer, new computers or laptops, whatever it is, the best part of all is that when you make the call and you make the purchase, you are locked in service after the sale. The kind of service you can't get when you're talking about somebody who's going to give you a 1-800 number to call, and somebody's going to tell you to call our call center and we'll set something up with one of our technicians. None of that with Advantage Business Systems. A Mississippi company taking care of you because they're in Mississippi. They can fix your problems a lot of times the exact same day. 601-362-9192 or visit them online, absms.com. Find out how Advantage Business Systems will help your business do business. Before you go to the next game at Davis Wade Stadium, you need to make a trip to Maroon & Co. Go see the incredible selection of Mississippi State merchandise that you can only find at Maroon & Co. They have the biggest and best selection of it in the entire city of Starkville. Everything maroon and white at Maroon & Co. And best of all, they have our promo code so you can save a little money. Thunder15 takes 15% off the regular price on any purchase in-store or online at maroonandco.com. Before you're in Starkville next weekend for the Texas game, make sure you're headed over to see our friends at Maroon & Co. Guys, the holidays are coming up, and you're thinking, what am I going to get whoever? The good news is this. If you make a trip to Scruggs Farm Lawn and Garden, they've probably got something that person likes because they've just got it all. If you've got a man who likes to make the repairs around the house, he's a handyman, boom, covered. Got a guy who takes his yard work seriously, boom, covered with John Deere financing available as low as 0% up to 60 months. You got a guy who likes to work out in the garden. I got you covered. Is he a grillsman? Got you covered. Is he a sportsman? I've got you covered. It doesn't matter what it is. Scruggs Farm Lawn and Garden has something for you. They have what you want for less at Scruggs Farm Lawn and Garden in Saltillo. If you've just bought a new piece of property, you've put a few hundred acres into an investment, and you're thinking, I need somebody to help me. I need somebody to help me get this land looking the way I want it to look. You need to talk to the good people at Good Hope Land and Timber. Long, experienced company dealing with homeowners, landowners, just like you. A group of loggers here in this state who have worked all over the state, from one end to the other. They work in Louisiana, they work in Arkansas, and they can get your property looking the way you want it to look. If you're planning a final harvest, if you're thinning a stand, or you're just managing your forest for the long term, Good Hope Land and Timber is here to maximize your return while protecting your land. Locally trusted, landowner approved. Call Good Hope Land and Timber today. All right, let's talk some hoops. And the SEC released the predicted order of finish and the all-SEC teams. No surprise to see Josh Hubbard's name on the first team. No surprise to see that he got some votes for SEC Player of the Year. He is not the SEC Player of the Year, but he got some votes, and that's not surprising. Some surprise over where State landed in the predicted order of finish, 10th. Now, 10th the last few years is you're in the NCAA tournament, and there's not a lot of drama about that. But I think Mississippi State fans they expect a little bit more in year 4 of Chris Jans. I expect a little bit more in year 4 of Chris Jans. I'm not saying this team is going to win the conference, but I do think they can finish in the top half. Do you agree with that assessment, Robbie Faulk?
I think I do. I like the pieces. I think there's some things that have to continue to come together. I like what I'm hearing. I just got to see it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think it could be a team that finishes, 8th or better. I think it'd be a team that finishes 500 or a little better than that as well, because I don't think that the league is as strong as it was.
Agreed.
It doesn't mean that it's not a super strong league, but I just feel like we were on a completely different planet with what we saw last year out of the SEC and what we're going to see moving forward. I think that was just kind of a little bit of an anomaly. I think the conference is still going to be super strong, but last year was just insane. But yeah, I think so. I think that people are vastly underestimating, maybe not vastly, but people are still underestimating Chris Jans. He's still not getting the credit that he deserves. He's built a different roster every single year that he's been here. If you look at every single season, it's been a different kind of team. And it's like he's tinkering with it. Like he tries this. No, that don't work. I need to get back to this. And I feel like he's finally getting into more of a sweet spot where he has guys that can shoot the basketball and score the basketball, but he's also more defensive this year than he was last year. Last year, I think it just really irked him seeing his teams come out and not rebound the basketball like he's used to doing. So he went out and he got one of the best centers in the portal. He got bigger in high school recruiting class. They got size and wingspan across the board and out of the freshman class. Transfer portal guys look really good. So yeah, I think they can. I think they can be better than expected. You have a an ultimate wild card in ace in the hole, I guess you could say, in Josh Hubbard, who's going to get you usually 18 to 25 a night, and that's something that's really good thing to have too. So yeah, I think that this is a team that could be better than a lot of people expected, and I think that Jans too is is pretty bullish on this team.
Yeah.
He will actually come out and say, I usually don't say this, but I really like this team. I think you said it on this podcast.
He did.
So he likes this team a lot. He thinks that there's a lot of potential with it. Now it's just putting it together and those guys gelling and accepting their roles, and everybody coming together to try to take the next step, which is get in the tournament again and win.
Yeah. I think that, and you mentioned the interview with Jans that we did last week here on the show. He is high on this team, and I do think that what the point you made, that he knew last year that offensively they were not getting it done. So they went out and they tried to get some offensive guys, and I think his thought process was, I can coach them up defensively. Mm-hmm. And it just didn't work. It just didn't work. Kugel.
Personalities didn't fit with him.
The fit was not there. But another thing you said, and I go back to Jans's opening press conference, and I've talked to him about this before. He talked about, like, I don't worry about building a program. I worry about building a team, and doing it year to year. And that's what the portal is going to lead to, is you can't worry about 3-4 years down the road. Every year is kind of this self-contained thing. And he totally flipped the way his team looked last year. It worked to a certain extent. They were much better offensively, but defensively they took way too big of a step back. I think we all thought last year they will take a step back defensively. They won't be as good defensively, but they'll be good enough offensively that it doesn't matter. It turned into they took too much of a step back, and the balance wasn't there. This year, you can see in the guys that he went after, there's a lot of wingspan. There's a lot of guys who are defenders. There's guys who can play multiple positions and be versatile. And then he made a point to go out and get a couple of guys to put in the backcourt around Hubbard so that they can't just zero in on him. Jaden Epps is going to be a huge piece for Mississippi State. I think Jabari McGee is going to be a huge piece for Mississippi State this year in terms of just giving some cover to Josh Hubbard when they are out there on the field. So, or on the court, I should say. So my question is going to be, they're picked 10th, right? How high can they go? Can they be 6th or 7th? I don't know the answer to that. I got to see. There's been enough flux in the conference, with obviously with Auburn and they're leaving, and I agree with you that the conference is not. It's still going to be really good, but it's not going to be this historic thing that it was a year ago. So State has a chance, I think, if the pieces fall into place the right way, to jump up ahead of where they're predicted. But
I'm really interested in the freshmen too. I think this is going to be the most playing time some of these, a freshman class has had since Jans has been here. You look at Cameron Paul and you look at King Grace. I think those guys are going to make an impact. I think Jamarian Davis Fleming is going to come in and help them at least just spell some guys, just give, 5 minutes, come in there and defend and rebound. Who knows about T. Bartlett? He's a guy that if he gets, I think he'll help this year. If he gets in shape, that's a real difference maker for you in the post. So they've got options in the freshman class. It makes it a pretty deep team for the most part. You look at the depth of the team and the quality of player that's coming off the bench. It's pretty deep. I think they took a little bit of a hit in the post. I think Guy Chol, Christian's announced today at SEC Media Days, he's out for the year.
Oh, I hadn't seen that. Okay, got
But,
it.
I just don't know how much Guy is going to make a difference. Long term and in a ball game. I think he comes in, he plays hard. He can give Quincy Ballard, some rest a little bit, but I think that's probably you have a higher ceiling out of a guy like T. Bartlett. He's probably going to get those minutes.
Mm.
So, but you didn't want to take the hit there in the post the way that you did.
No, yeah, and that's what hurt State last year was in the post. Michael Nwoko, it didn't work out the way you thought it would. Jeremy Famina didn't work out. Keyshawn Murphy got better as the season goes along, but obviously he's gone now. He's at Auburn, so that's a piece. I think when we look back, there's a chance that we look back at the end of the season and go, if they had kept Keyshawn Murphy, that probably would have been worth 2-3 wins to this team. But we'll see what happens when we get there. A lot more basketball talk, obviously, to come here on Thunder and Lightning as we get closer and closer to the start of the season. Tomorrow's show, you know what it is, 3 Ps. We'll talk about Mississippi State versus Florida. Do that tomorrow. Until then, for Robbie Faulk, I'm Brian Hadad. Thanks for listening to Thunder and Lightning here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.